How we doing, everybody? Matt Modi here with OddsJam, here to give another video on my solo YouTube channel. So appreciate everybody who is tuning in. If you are, please give a like button. Please subscribe if you haven't yet. Helps me out a ton as I just try to grow this solo YouTube channel. But for this video, I'm just going to be doing a betting preview of the Super Bowl, specifically talking about player props. So I have a video out on the channel already giving betting preview of like main lines and matchups and stuff. In this video specifically, I'm going to be looking at player props. So going to be looking at the matchup, going to be looking at different advanced stats to come up with my favorite player prop bets for the Super Bowl. Of course, part of those is going to be using OddsJam to find some good plays and using all the data that I have available to me to find these player props. Going to be looking at passing, rushing, and receiving player props specifically. So I am going to come out with an anytime touchdown score one in a different video. I also have one out specifically on the OddsJam, regular OddsJam YouTube channel. So if you wanted to check that out, you could. In this video, talking about player props. So starting with passing statistics first. So right off the bat, a couple things to keep in mind. Jalen Hurts' passing stats have not looked good since he came back from the injury, but you kind of have to look at each of those games individually and you can kind of understand why. So his first game back was against the Giants in Week 18. They pretty much had a preseason game plan on that one. The Giants were resting their starters, so really vanilla game plan. Told Hurts to not hold on to the ball, to not risk any type of injury. So he came out and his passing looked mostly fine in terms of his actual arm strength, but the stats aren't there. And then in the two playoff games, your defense only gives up 7 points each. So it's not like Hurts needed to do anything through the air. Now against the Giants, the Eagles came out throwing and he looked phenomenal. Literally on the first drive, he hit DeVonta Smith on like a 40-yard completion, his first throw of the game, or his first long on the Eagles' first drive of the game. Now, they scored on their first two drives, really didn't need to do anything. They're up 28-0 at halftime. Against the 49ers is where things are a little bit of a bigger concern because the score was 7-7 with like 2 minutes left in the second half. The Eagles had a stretch in the first into the second quarter where they had 3 drives and only got 1 first down. Hurts looked a little bit jittery in the pocket. He missed A.J. Brown on a long throw the same way he did against the Giants. So the 49ers, I can understand a little bit more of the Hurts passing concerns, but overall, his arm strength has looked fine. He's going to have 2 more weeks to get more healthy. So I'm expecting him to be fully healthy when it comes to the shoulder injury and be able to make all the throws. So with that thought in mind, I found a good play backing Hurts. Let me share my screen here. And I like Hurts to have his longest passing completion over 36.5 yards. So I locked this one in on Caesars, as you can see here. I put roughly to win 3/4 of a unit on this one, which for me is $75. So this one was locked in for 85 to win roughly 75. Jalen Hurts over 36.5 passing completions, -113 at Caesars. The reason why I like this one, the Chiefs defense has kind of changed their style over the course of the season, and they got a lot better as the season ended. But they're starting at a minimum 2 rookies. L'Jarius Sneed, who's a really good player, who can travel with number 1 receivers, is currently in the concussion protocol. I'm assuming that he is going to play. But the reason why I like Hurts, number 1, is the value, which I'll get into in a second. But also because of the style the Chiefs play defense. They play a lot of aggressive press man coverage. And the Eagles, if they can get A.J. Brown or DeVonta Smith, if they can beat that press coverage, they'll be open for a play deep. Obviously, both of them are incredibly good receivers at deep balls, at tracking the ball in the air, at coming up with contested catches. You wouldn't think that knowing DeVonta Smith and how skinny he is, but phenomenal deep ball catcher, phenomenal contested catcher. And we saw Ja'Marr Chase had come up with a long catch in the middle of double coverage in the AFC Championship game, being covered by two rookies. And Ja'Marr Chase is obviously incredible. So are Devontae Smith and A.J. Brown. So my first play that I'm going to lock in here is Hurts's longest completion over 36.5 yards. Another passing one that I locked in, instead of longest completion, we're looking at total completions. And I locked in Patrick Mahomes to go over 25.5 completions. So I got this for plus 100 odds at Caesars Sportsbook. I locked this one in for exactly $75. My logic for this one, the Chiefs offense has changed a lot since this year without Tyreek Hill. They rely a lot more on the short and intermediate game than they used to. And those are the types of completions that the Eagles defense welcomes. They refuse to give up anything deep. They play a lot of off coverage. Now, they primarily play zone, but recently they've been playing more man, which I think is probably the way to go against the Chiefs, at least against Travis Kelce. But I do think that Patrick Mahomes has shown his progression as a quarterback and that he's willing to take the underneath throw and just methodically move the ball up and down the field. And that's, again, the type of defense that that's a type of defense that the Eagles plays, and they welcome that type of offense. So it's almost a perfect storm in terms of Patrick Mahomes' total passing completions going over 25.5 because of that logic. Now, it's also a good value play. It's at plus 100 at Caesars. DraftKings favors this going over. Pinnacle, which is this number right here, favors this going over. At the over at minus 115, the under at minus 103. So that is a really, really good price here, which is why I like it. So that's my second player prop that we are going to lock in. My third one is in the receiving yards category, and we are looking at, as soon as this loads, the play is going to be A.J. Brown to go over 69.5 receiving yards. So you can also get him to go over 70.5 minus 115 at PointsBet. I'm just sacrificing, getting a little bit of a safer play and getting him to go over 69.5 minus 124 at BetRivers. Can also get this at Barstool as well. So I have yet to lock this one in. Everything moving forward, I have yet to lock in. So I'm going to go ahead and do that now. So we see A.J. Brown over 69.5, risk to win 75 on this one as well. That's my standard player prop. Similar to the longest passing completion, the Chiefs can be had deep. A.J. Brown take out these 3 games that Hurts has played since the injury, and he's been a phenomenal deep ball thrower specifically to A.J. Brown. And A.J. Brown, he's gotten open deep in both playoff games, and Hurts has just missed him. And I have a hard time believing that that is going to continue. So Brown to go over 69.5 receiving yards, I think makes a ton of sense. Another reason why I like it is if you look at the DVOA statistics for the Chiefs, they're 31st, which is second to last, in how they guard opposing teams' number one offensive receiving weapons. Number one receivers, I should say, not receiving weapon. Number one receiver. The Chiefs are 31st. Now, I mentioned their defense kind of iterated as the season went along, but still 31st is 31st. Chase had a good game against them. Previous number ones have had a good game, obviously, against them in the past. So A.J. Brown, I think that he's due to have a good game. The value also supports him going over 69.5 receiving yards. Both DraftKings, Caesars, WinBet favor him going over. And if I zoom out a little bit, you will see that Pinnacle, which is this column right here, has him over under 72.5 and also favors him going over. So this over 69.5 is really good value. So A.J. Brown over 69.5 as my third player prop. The next one that I wanted to lock in here, we are looking at Jerick McKinnon over 20.5 receiving yards. Another really, really good play. So number one, we can talk about the value. Majority of sportsbooks have this 2 yards higher at 22.5, as does Pinnacle, which is this line right here, as you see Pinnacle. And again, Pinnacle favors it going over. FanDuel has it at 22.5. PointsBet heavily favors it at 20.5. DraftKings is the only one that's kind of out of our favor at 20.5 at 50-50. But getting it at BetRivers at -114 is pretty good value. So that one I'm going to lock in as well. We're looking at Jerick McKinnon over, it was 20.5 receiving yards. I put, again, 75, 3/4 of a unit on this one to win. I'm going to go ahead and lock that in. In terms of the analysis behind it, the Eagles struggle regarding number one receivers out, or excuse me, they struggle guarding receiving running backs out of the backfield. That's one of the weaknesses that the Eagles have. Now, Jerick McKinnon, Clyde Edwards-Helaire is healthy, or he's been removed from the IR, so he's healthy heading into this game. That personally doesn't scare me off taking it doesn't scare me off of taking Jerick McKinnon to go over his receiving yardage prop. He has been huge for the Chiefs all year, and he's been quiet in both playoff games, which I understand, but I think that is just kind of the nature of the game. It's just because he had 2 bad games. He's still incredibly important in the offense. And like I said, the Eagles struggle regarding receiving running backs. Anything behind the line of scrimmage, they don't have fast kind of linebackers like a Fred Warner that you see just fly to the ball. They don't have those types of linebackers. And I also think they're can be had in the screen game, which is obviously where Andy Reid is a total nut and psychopath and incredible in the screen game. So as my fourth one, give me Jerick McKinnon to go over 20.5 receiving yards, -114 at BetRivers. Next up, another receiving one, the third receiving one. I really like Kenneth Gainwell over 10.5 receiving yards, -114 at FanDuel. So first things first, I guess I got to log back in and lock this one in. All right, so I have this up, risk to win 75 on this one as well. This one I need to manually add to my bet tracker because I put 85.5 because one of the sports books that doesn't sync is FanDuel to the OddsJam bet tracker. So in terms of this one, the value, you can see FanDuel has it at 10.5. Other sports books heavily favor it going over at 10.5 or have it at 11.5 or 12.5. In terms of the matchup, this is more so we're backing Kenny Gainwell than anything. He has been phenomenal in both of the playoff games. I don't know what a fire got lit under him heading into the playoffs, but he has been phenomenal. He has taken more and more of the third down work away from Miles Sanders as the season has gone along, and that has continued to be the case in the playoffs. So Kenny Gainwell is the Eagles' main third down running back at this point, which is obviously a high leverage passing down situations. He's better in pass protection. He's better as a receiver. And 11 yards is such a low total, and he's done so well in both of the playoff games. So I really like backing Kenny Gainwell. I also like his rushing, so we'll see if there's some value there. But as as my fifth play for this video, give me Kenneth Gainwell over 10.5 receiving yards. Next up, we're looking at receptions, and we're looking at Travis Kelce to go over 7.5 receptions is going to be another one of these player props that I'm going to lock in. Total receptions, Travis Kelce over 7.5, risking $75 on this one. Need to make sure that it is locked in. It is, and we are good to go. So this one, it's pretty obvious. Kelce is obviously not even close to the top receiving target for the Chiefs. I can't imagine he's going to be he's healthy. He played in the last game against the Bengals, so I can't imagine that he's going to be anything less than 100% for the Super Bowl. He was questionable with back spasms. He played fine. I think that he's going to be fine in the Super Bowl. And I kind of hinted at this before with the Patrick Mahomes completions, but the way the Eagles play defense, they don't press coverage, which is what you need to do when you are playing against Travis Kelce. You need to get hands on him at the beginning, at the line of scrimmage, right when the ball is snapped. And it's not how the Eagles play defense. They give a lot of free releases, and that is a death sentence when it comes to Travis Kelce. Now, I will say the Eagles defense has been good as the season has gone along at making adjustments in game, but I could see this being one of those things where in the first half, Kelce already goes over his reception total because of how the Eagles play defense. Now, analytically, I found this surprising. The Eagles were pretty good against tight ends, but that had more to do with the types of tight ends that they played more so than anything. There's nothing in terms of the specific players, linebackers, safeties, or schematically that the Eagles do that would take away the tight end. And I will say, one of the better tight ends they played was Dalton Schultz. They only played him in the second game against Dallas, and he had a pretty good game. Dalton Schultz did. So Kelce, I think he's going to just destroy the Eagles in this one. If the Eagles play zone, he has a mind meld with Mahomes, and they do such a good job, or Kelce specifically does such a good job at finding the open space, and Mahomes hits him. Kelce's a different type of player than he used to be back in his prime. He's not nearly as much of a deep threat, but he's really good in that short to intermediate route, which is where the Eagles just get killed. So I love Travis Kelce and his reception total to go over 7.5. And that's going to be it. So that was 6 player props for you guys to lock in the 6 best value plays that I had, looking at every single market and looking at all the different plays and the matchups and everything. So if you guys are tailing these, comment and let me know. I would love to hear it. And I mentioned this at the beginning. Please remember to like the video, subscribe to my new YouTube channel, would help me out a ton. But that's it. So again, if you're tailing, comment and let me know, and have a good one.